You know, the more you read the Bible, the more you discover things that absolutely intrigue you, don't you? I found something just the other day that I want to share with you. It was buried in the old story of Lazarus. As background, Lazarus, good friend of Jesus, has sisters Mary and Martha. Lazarus grows ill. The sisters send to Jesus, "Please come, heal our brother." He delays. Lazarus dies. By the time Jesus arrives in Bethany, he's been dead a few days. Jesus sees the mourners wailing. They had some professional mourners back then. They were quite good at it. Saw Mary and Martha, both of whom asked, "Why didn't you come sooner? Our brother wouldn't have died." And as he takes in this scene, the Revised Standard and the New Revised Standard version describes him as feeling disturbed in spirit. And then shortly after, in 11:35, John's Gospel, Jesus wept. Now, I've always taken that at face value. Well, he's sad. He lost his good friend, and the tears he had were tears of grief. However, that's not the case. I discovered that the Greek that's behind what's translated disturbed in spirit refers to emotion much stronger and much more captivating than that simply of grief. The Living Bible translates this passage a little more accurately thusly. When Jesus saw all the scene, he was moved with indignation and deeply troubled. "Where is he buried?" he asked them. They told him, "Come and see." Tears came to Jesus' eyes, and again, Jesus was moved with deep anger. And then they came to the tomb. It was a cave with a heavy stone rolled across the door. You see, that's a little different from grief. He didn't have tears of sorrow. He had tears of indignation. The Greek, dig a little bit deeper into it, you see that it's just not anger. It is rage that so captivates a person that the person shakes. Literally, it comes from a word that refers to snorting in the spirit. I have no idea what that means, but it sounds picturesque, doesn't it? You know? That's what Jesus was feeling. And so the intriguing thing is, why? Was he mad at the mourners putting on this melodramatic display? Was he angry that the sisters had accused him of not caring? Was he disturbed because the people were pushing him once again, do a miracle, do a miracle? Was he mad because death had swallowed up his friend? We don't know, but we do know this, that he says quite pointedly, "Show me the tomb." Because you see, the tomb is Jesus' focal point of rage. The tomb is what caused the angst of Mary and Martha, causing them to do such hacky things as accusing Jesus of not caring. The tomb is a source of pain for Lazarus. Look at it from his perspective. Lazarus in that dark cave. Any hope he had, destroyed. Any mistake he'd made never could be corrected. Any wish of being connected again to a son or a daughter or to sisters, gone. Enclosed, encapsulated in that cold cave. When you think about it, it's the tomb that has some fear for us too, doesn't it? Isn't the fear of the tomb that which really causes us pain, whether we're conscious of it or not? Don't we know that when we pass that graveyard just up the street or over there, we are reminded that from dust we came and unto dust we shall return. And it's that returning to dust that makes us scared. Because we know that one day, no matter whether we're 4 or 104, there's still stuff we want to do. And still we're going to be cut short. And what's worse, perhaps, is that we know that that tomb can still take away our son or our daughter or our husband or our wife, or any of our loved ones in a heartbeat. The tomb, in a way, is like a schoolyard bully, isn't it? The tomb demands our lunch money. Give me your fears. Give me your tears. Come on. And so we give it that. We pay our pound of flesh to the tomb, and it still takes away our loved ones. It still makes us worry incessantly, laughing at us in the process. So no wonder Jesus was angry. He does not like bullies. So Jesus, as only the Son of God could do, Jesus stands up to the tomb.
After he had said this, he called out in a loud voice,
Lazarus, come out!
he came out.
He stands toe-to-toe with the tomb, and the bully backs away. Life comes out of the place where once was death. And after shock wore away, and after Lazarus took several showers, there was rejoicing. In a graveyard, there was rejoicing. But what the video does not show, that just a few miles down the road, there was another tomb. And Rebekah and Joseph were placing in the tomb their stillborn son. And a few miles from there, there was Jacob saying goodbye to his spouse of several decades, Rachel. You see, Jesus might have shown the bully who's who on that one day, but Jesus went away, and eventually Lazarus would end up at that very same place. No, for there to be a decisive victory, there had to be something more than simply a toe-to-toe one afternoon under a blue sky. Something more powerful, something more dramatic had to happen, something unthinkable. Because it is one thing for Jesus to stand in front of Lazarus' tomb when it's nice and blue outside. It's another thing for Jesus to go into the tomb and take Lazarus' place. It's another thing for him to feel the hopelessness, the helplessness. It's another thing for him to have all sense of joy snuffed out in that inky darkness. And as that stone was rolled in front of the tomb, the taunt began. Yeah, you see, all those nice words that Jesus had describing God as a father, yeah, look where it got Jesus. There is no God. And all those miracles, tricks, hoaxes, sleights of hand. Jesus is not the Messiah. Jesus is a fraud, and he's dead. Room temperature. End of story. And as hour after hour passed toward midnight of Good Friday, the hearts of Jesus' friends grew darker and darker with despair. But as the minutes and the hours passed on to Saturday, on to Sunday morning, just as the friends of Jesus' hearts grew sadder, another heart grew madder, angrier. This heart started snorting in the spirit. This heart started getting outraged and indignant at what happened to his son. The rage started shaking him, and as he shook the ground. And as he shook the ground, the seal of the stone against the tomb cracked, and the stone was pushed away. And as Jesus had said to Lazarus, so now the Father says, "My son, come out and live." And so he did. Now, Mary Magdalene knew nothing of this because she was still in the dark, remember? She goes in the dark, reflecting of her own melancholy, depression. She sees the two visitors in white in the tomb, and they ask her, "Why are you crying?" She turns around, bumps into Jesus in disguise, and he asks, "Why are you crying?" Now, on the surface, those are rather silly questions. You know, you go to an emergency room bleeding profusely, the doctor does not say, "And what's wrong with us?" But you see, this was not a question they were asking. It was a statement they were making. "Why are you weeping? You see, he's not dead anymore." And Jesus turns to her and says, "Mary," and her heart warms and says, "Because I live, Mary, you will live also. Because there is nothing that will ever separate you from me, from my brothers and sisters evermore. You go, you run down the road and tell them that I am alive and it's death that's died. You tell them that." And so Mary did. You can sort of hear her footsteps still. Professor Joan Myers-Levy was sitting in an airport waiting for her flight when she looked around her, and she noted that in the terminal there were huge vaulted ceilings with windows through which you could see blue sky and planes arriving and departing. And it struck her that in just a few minutes she would be leaving that high ceiling place and going into a flying closet called a plane, where she had to be crowded with other passengers under the overhead compartments. And she wondered, is there any way that we have our thought processes, our outlooks changed as we find ourselves in rooms of differing ceiling heights? So when she got back to the University of Minnesota, she did a study, and she found that students who perform tasks in low ceiling places perform better with detail work, sort of sometimes obsessing over the details because they operated out of a sense of confinement, limitation. Without the resurrection, we're in a low ceiling place, folks. We obsess over the details, we constantly play out the worst case scenarios, and we approach the tomb and enter the tomb even while we're still alive, out of worry and our obsession. But look around you this morning. This is a high ceiling place we're in, and that's on purpose. The professor discovered that students in a high ceiling place started acting and thinking in terms of freedom, possibility, creativity. With the resurrection, that's what we operate in too, because the resurrection has raised the ceiling to an infinite height for you and for me. And we can be free, and we can dream, and we can hope for our infant child or our elderly parent. Because today we hear the words that Jesus said to Mary. Today we hear him say to you and to me, "Because I live, you will live also." Live, laugh, love. Sure, there will be difficulties in this life. Look, I'm resurrected and I still have the nail prints. But remember, they're only flesh wounds, not soul wounds. Because there is no place you can go in this world that I have not already been to. There is no light that you will experience, or no darkness that you will experience that my light has not exposed. So what I said to Lazarus, I say to you at Manchester United Methodist Church on Easter morning at 11:13. I say to you, go out and live. Live.